The videos on my channel tend to invite a specific type of viewer. By making videos centering around horror games, mental health, and psychological theory, I often see comments left by people who are suffering deeply. A lot of them see the suffering in my life reflected in theirs, and like myself, they are seeking a path towards enlightenment. On this pathway, we have come across essential books, movies, or games, all of which contain insight into our suffering. Insight which might allow us to push forward. In illustrating certain concepts, I've used clips from movies and games, but one image I frequently use elicits the most vocal response. The image you see on screen now is one I tend to use in my videos when I describe a path away from suffering towards enlightenment. This image was created by a man named Alex Grey, and he describes it as a blazing vision of an infinite grid of godheads during an ayahuasca journey. While the vibrant colors and mathematical harmony of the image is hypnotizing, it is not what my commenters are responding so positively to. Rather, it is artwork produced for an album called 10,000 Days for a band called Tool. Tool is a progressive metal band, whose songs and lyrics are composed with cerebral concepts in mind. I say cerebral because they are difficult concepts, but also concepts related to human consciousness. It seems that on our respective spiritual therapeutic journeys, Tool is a common rest stop where we can signal to each other. Songs like Parabola encourage those who are suffering to reframe their misery, with lyrics such as, "Embrace this moment, remember we are eternal, all this pain is an illusion." Other songs like Third Eye and Lateralis illustrate the human desire to transcend our current existence. Today, I wish to focus on one of Tool's most beloved songs, a song that speaks to an eternal human struggle. 46 and 2. I chose 46 and 2 to analyze because there is a core concept that influences the lyrics, a concept that I have discussed frequently on this channel, the psychological concept known as the shadow, developed by German psychoanalyst Carl Jung. This is of particular importance because the concept of the shadow has recently resurfaced in the public consciousness, thanks to a man named Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is a Canadian clinical psychologist who has become quite famous over the past couple of years for his analysis of current political events as well as his therapeutic methods. Peterson was heavily influenced by Jung, referring to the latter's intelligence as, quote, bloody terrifying. He has even cautioned against reading Jung's books in case one wants to permanently restructure their cognitive functions. In his lectures, Peterson has frequently referenced to Jung's shadow concept as a therapeutic tool. No pun intended. By understanding what the shadow is, one might find ways to come to terms with life's inherent suffering and transcend it. I understand Peterson is a controversial figure, whose perspectives have been viciously opposed by some. Despite that, I ask that you adopt Tool's Nicomachean ethic, entertaining an idea without accepting it. The title of the song, 46 and 2, comes from a fantastical, relatively disprovable concept. Nevertheless, Tool wrote about said concept out of a desire to simply find new ways to look at things. I ask that we put aside all prejudices about the figures being discussed and pry open our third eyes. According to Carl Jung, the shadow refers to the dark, undesirable aspect of our unconscious mind. If we recognize traits within our souls that we do not like, we push them down into unconsciousness, into our shadow. For instance, in order to become civilized, we will sacrifice our animal instincts towards violence and selfishness. In order to socialize effectively, we might hide certain interests in esoteric or taboo subjects. Those instincts and interests, regardless if they are good or bad, fall into the shadow. While it makes sense to do this for the sake of order, Jung proposes that repressing these traits is not an ideal long-term strategy. How often in our nihilistic age do we see our fellow men men and women fall prey to the temptations of egotism, mental laziness and sloppiness, carelessness and cowardice, inordinate love of money and possessions. By not being fully conscious of our undesirable traits, they control the direction of our lives. By confronting these dark tendencies, accepting them, and integrating them into our conscious life, we may become enlightened. We might find useful knowledge to help sustain ourselves. Naturally, realizing that we have these terrible primordial traits within us, bringing them under our control can be a painful process. Maynard James Keenan, Tool's singer and primary lyricist, illustrates this fact with the following words. There is a temptation to be consumed by our unconscious minds, to identify with our dark tendencies. Those who have failed in their confrontation with the shadow often make for the greatest villains, in fiction and non-fiction. They let the dark side of their nature corrupt their personality, and thus make the pursuit of chaos their sole motive. However, those who have succeeded in integrating the shadow into their conscious mind will expand their consciousness. They will move closer to enlightenment. The light that guides us through the shadow and back to consciousness is enigmatic, unique to each individual. We seek for that piece to cross us over, that word to guide us in. Once it is discovered, we will supposedly feel the changes coming down. We will find the change we so desperately need in our shadow. The integration of the shadow is a continuous process throughout one's life. To use Jungian terminology, our ego is trying to become synonymous with the self. The ego is us, and the self is the ideal us. By integrating shadow contents, our ego may expand to the point where it is indistinguishable from the self. This is an abstract representation of what hypothetically would happen to our conscious minds if one were to reach pure enlightenment. However, what about our physical bodies? This is where the concept of 46:2 comes in. Our bodies are made up of chromosomes, molecules which contain all the genetic material of an organism. In humans, there are 44 chromosomes, 22 pairs, plus 2 sex chromosomes that determine gender. 44 plus 2 equals 46 chromosomes. But why 44 and 2 chromosomes? What would happen if human beings somehow had another pair of chromosomes? Ergo, 46 and 2. A metaphysicist named Drunvalo Melchizedek comments on this hypothesis. There are 3 totally different kinds of humans on the Earth, meaning that they perceive the one reality in 3 different ways, interpreted differently. The first kind of human has a chromosome composition of 42 and 2. They comprise a unity consciousness that does not see anything outside themselves as being separate from themselves. To them, there is only one energy, one life, one beingness that moves everywhere. Anything happening anywhere is within them as well. They are like cells in the body. They are all connected to a single consciousness that moves through all of them. These are the Aboriginals in Australia. There might be a few African tribes like this. Then there is our level, comprising 44 and 2 chromosomes. We are a disharmonic level of consciousness that is used as a stepping stone from the 42 and 2 level to the next level, 46 and 2. To summarize, our current state of consciousness is unstable compared to the unity consciousness of 42 and 2 and 46 and 2. We see ourselves as individuals. We don't share consciousness with others. We are islands to one another, passing ships in a stormy sea. It could be reasoned that our pain, suffering, ignorance, apathy, and general bad qualities stem from our chromosomal imbalance. Therefore, the only way to truly rid ourselves of these is by moving on. Upon reaching a state where the world has 46 and 2 chromosomes, we will maintain our individuality, but we will also be united in the form of a higher being in order to work as one entity. We will be individual puzzle pieces, making up a whole. Each has its own purpose and identity, and each will find its place. But again, achieving this physical and mental state will only come by contending with the disunity of our current state of 44 and 2, by contending with our shadow. We must listen to our muscle memory and contemplate what we've been clinging to. Upon confronting the shadow, as we already said, there is the possibility that it might consume us, that it might stretch up and over us and soften this old armor that protected us from the shadow's negative effects. There is risk in this process, but there is also the hope that one might step through the shadow and break on through to the other side, where 46 and 2 are just ahead of us. How appropriate is it that the song ends with each instrument pounding on one single note, symbolizing the body and mind, violently struggling, pounding away at the shadow in the hopes of reaching the light.